Single mom couldn't afford her daughter's toy. Imagine walking into a toy store, holding your little girl's hand, watching her eyes light up at every shelf, but knowing, deep down, you can't afford even the smallest thing she wants. That was Emma's reality. A single mother fighting every day to survive. Working 2 jobs, skipping meals, counting coins, just to see her daughter smile. Around her, laughter and luxury filled the aisles, yet she stood there, invisible. The world looked at her struggle and judged. No one knew the strength it took just to keep going. Until one stranger saw her, not with pity, but with understanding. This story isn't just about a toy. It's about dignity, love, and the kind of kindness that can change a life forever. Because sometimes, the richest hearts are hidden behind the poorest wallets. And the greatest heroes are the ones who give without being seen. If you've ever felt unseen, unheard, or unappreciated, this story is for you. Listen closely. Let it remind you that your pain has meaning, and your perseverance has power. Subscribe now if you believe the world needs more stories like this. Leave a comment telling us where you're watching from. Let's see how far this message of hope can travel. Together, we can remind the world that compassion still exists, and that every small act of goodness can transform a life. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine being Emma. Imagine your child looking up at you, hoping you can make magic happen. And then, a stranger walks in and does exactly that. This is not just a story. It's a reminder that in a world full of noise, empathy still whispers the loudest. The toy she couldn't buy. It was a rainy afternoon when Emma held her daughter Lily's tiny hand and walked into the toy store. The fluorescent lights flickered. Above, reflecting off shelves filled with bright boxes and shiny plastic smiles. Lily's eyes widened at every turn. Dolls that could talk, cars that roared, teddy bears that danced. But Emma's heart tightened with every price tag she saw. She worked 2 jobs, one at a diner and another cleaning offices. At night, her paycheck barely covered rent, groceries, and Lily's school supplies. Yet here she was, trying to bring a little happiness to her child on her 7th birthday. "Mommy, look!" Lily's voice sparkled as she pointed to a stuffed bunny wearing a blue ribbon. "It's the one from the commercial." "Can I have it?" Emma smiled, but her eyes dimmed as she turned the price tag. It was $39.99. She quickly placed it back on the shelf, pretending to examine another toy. "Maybe next time, sweetheart," she whispered softly. "Let's keep looking." Lily nodded, but her smile faded. Emma could feel the weight of her daughter's disappointment, like a stone pressing against her chest. Around them, other parents laughed, children screamed with joy. Credit cards swiped without hesitation. She wished, for just one day, she could do the same. At the counter, a woman in a sleek coat noticed Emma counting coins. She whispered something to the cashier and glanced over with a smirk. Emma's cheeks burned. She wasn't ashamed of hard work, but she hated moments like these, when poverty wasn't invisible anymore. "I'm sorry, ma'am," said the cashier, awkwardly. "You're a few dollars short." Emma looked down at the handful of change she had placed on the counter. "Oh, I see." She gently pulled Lily closer. "It's okay. We'll come back later." She turned to leave, but her voice trembled. "Thank you." The cashier hesitated, watching them go. But from the back of the line, someone else was watching too. A tall man in a dark coat, quiet, observing. His expression didn't show pity, but something deeper. A memory, perhaps. Lily tugged on Emma's sleeve. "Mommy, it's okay. I'll tell the bunny to wait for me." Emma knelt down and kissed her forehead. "You have the biggest heart, Lily." They walked out of the store into the drizzle. Emma's shoes soaked through as they reached the bus stop. She stared at her reflection in the window. Tired eyes, worn jacket, hope still flickering. Behind her, through the glass doors of the toy shop, the stranger was still there. He stepped forward to the counter. That woman and her daughter, he said in a calm tone. What were they trying to buy? The cashier blinked. Oh, just a toy bunny. $39.99. The man nodded slowly. I'll take it. And everything she touched. Everything she touched? The cashier repeated, confused. Yes, he said simply. Wrap them all. Outside, Emma and Lily climbed onto the bus. The seats were cracked. The air smelled faintly of gasoline. Lily leaned against her mother's arm, humming softly. Emma closed her eyes, whispering a silent prayer, not for money, but for strength. Inside the store, the man paid in cash. He didn't leave a name. He just said quietly, "Deliver it to this address," handing a note he had written after discreetly following them outside. As he left, the cashier still stared, unsure if she had just witnessed generosity or something out of a movie. The man disappeared into the gray rain, his footsteps calm, purposeful. Later that night, Emma sat at the kitchen table with a cup of instant coffee. The light flickered, and the sound of rain filled the silence. Lily had fallen asleep, clutching a small drawing, a bunny with a blue ribbon, smiling beside a stick figure labeled Mommy. Emma traced the paper with her fingers, tears slipping quietly down her face. She whispered, "One day I'll make things better for you. I promise." Miles away, in a penthouse suite, the same man, Daniel, removed his coat and stared out at the city lights. He placed a small note on his desk. Find them. He remembered another night long ago, a woman just like Emma, standing in a similar store, counting change while holding his little sister's hand. That night had changed his life. He had been the child once left behind by poverty. And now, he was the man who could change someone else's story. Tomorrow, he would begin. The whisper in the aisle. The next morning, the rain had stopped, leaving the streets smelling of wet pavement and faint hope. Emma walked Lily to school, holding her small backpack together with one hand and her lunch bag in the other. She kissed her daughter goodbye and watched her run inside, her pigtails bouncing. Be good, my love, she said softly. I'll pick you up after work. She turned and began her walk toward the diner. Her shoes were still damp from the night before, but her spirit tried to stay dry. The city was waking up. Horns, chatter, the smell of coffee drifting from small cafes. She wished she could sit down for a real breakfast, but every penny mattered. At the diner, Emma tied her apron and started her shift. She smiled as customers came and went, hiding her exhaustion behind politeness. Most didn't look her in the eye. She was part of the background. But one customer always did. Mr. Carter, a kind old man who came every morning for his toast and tea. You look tired, Emma, he said kindly. Long night? She smiled weakly. Just one of those days, you know. He nodded, stirring his tea. You're doing good, dear. Don't let this world make you forget your worth. Those words stayed with her as she cleaned tables and refilled coffee cups. Worth, what was it, really? She worked hard, she loved deeply, but society measured worth by numbers she didn't have. At lunch break, Emma passed the same toy store again. The display had changed slightly, but the blue ribbon bunny was still there, smiling through the glass. She stopped for a moment, her reflection mixing with the toy's face. Inside, the same cashier was talking to someone. Emma didn't notice at first that it was the woman from yesterday, the one with the sleek coat. I can't believe people bring kids in here when they can't even afford a toy, the woman said, her tone dripping with judgment. It's irresponsible. They should know their place. The cashier didn't respond, just gave a polite nod. But Emma heard it. every word sliced through her heart. She felt frozen, embarrassed, angry, and small all at once. Before she could walk away, a man's voice interrupted, calm, deep, familiar. "Maybe they come here to remember hope," he said. "Not to prove status." Emma turned, startled. The man from the previous night, Daniel, stood there, dressed sharply but humbly. No arrogance, no flash. The judgmental woman blinked, realizing he had overheard. He continued, "And maybe kindness is cheaper than people think." The woman huffed and left without another word. The cashier smiled faintly. Emma stood there, speechless. She wanted to thank him, but couldn't find the words. Daniel looked at her, a subtle recognition passing through his eyes, but he didn't reveal anything. "Good morning," he said gently. "I believe your daughter liked the bunny." Emma frowned slightly. "How did you?" But before she could finish, he smiled politely. "Just a guess." He turned and walked away. Emma watched him leave, her heart racing with confusion. She didn't know who he was or why he felt familiar, but something in his presence carried peace and power. Not the kind that came from money, but from understanding pain. When she returned home that evening, something was different. A small box sat at her doorstep, wrapped with golden ribbon. She looked around, no one in sight. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Inside was the same blue ribbon bunny, brand new, with a note that said only, "Every child deserves to dream. D." Tears welled up in her eyes. She ran inside, calling, "Lily, come here, sweetheart." The little girl came running, and when she saw the bunny, she screamed with joy. "Mommy, he came." "The bunny waited for me." Emma held her daughter tight. She wanted to find Daniel, to thank him, but deep down, she felt this was more than a random act of kindness. It was destiny crossing paths. That night, she placed the bunny beside Lily's pillow and whispered a prayer of gratitude. In another part of the city, Daniel sat in his office reviewing financial reports, but his mind wasn't on numbers. It was on a single mother and her daughter, reminders of where he had come from and why he had never forgotten the stranger in line. A few days later, Emma still couldn't stop thinking about the man in the toy store. His words, his calm eyes, the mysterious way he knew about the bunny, it all lingered in her mind. She had never met anyone like him. But life moved quickly, and bills didn't wait for miracles. The diner was busier than usual that Friday. Emma was running between tables, balancing trays, smiling through exhaustion. She didn't notice the tall man who had just entered, dressed in a navy jacket and simple jeans. Daniel. He took a seat in her section, quietly, observing. "Good afternoon," she greeted politely, not recognizing him immediately under the softer lighting. "Coffee?" "Yes, please," he replied. His tone was gentle, warm. She turned to fetch the cup, and when she came back, she froze slightly. "You," she whispered. "You're the man from the store." He smiled. "I suppose I am." Emma's cheeks flushed. I never got to thank you." "You don't have to," he said kindly. "Sometimes we help because we remember needing help once." For a moment, silence sat between them, filled with unspoken stories. Then a loud voice broke it. "Hey, I've been waiting." For 10 minutes, a customer yelled from another table. Emma rushed over, apologizing, while Daniel watched quietly. He noticed how she moved quick but humble, always saying sorry, even when she didn't need to. It reminded him of his mother. When Emma returned to refill his cup, Daniel said softly, "Do you ever take a break?" She laughed lightly. "Not really. Single moms don't get breaks. We just keep going." He admired her honesty. "That's strength, not struggle," he said. "Most people don't see the difference." Emma smiled faintly. You sound like you've seen both. Daniel's eyes darkened. For a moment, I have. Later that evening, as the diner emptied, Daniel was the last to leave. He placed a generous tip on the table, enough to pay for groceries for a week. But beneath the money, he left something else, a business card. Plain white, no title, just a name, Daniel Hayes. When Emma picked it up, her eyes widened. She had heard that name before on the local news, in magazines. Daniel Hayes, the young entrepreneur who had built one of the country's most successful tech companies from scratch. A millionaire by 30. Her hands trembled. That can't be him, she whispered. The next day, curiosity took over. She Googled his name at a public library computer. There he was, same face, same calm eyes. But the articles spoke of a man far removed from the world she lived in. Luxury cars, charity foundations, awards. That night, she wrote a note of gratitude, planning to mail it to the address on the card. But she hesitated. What could she possibly say to a man like that? Thank you for buying a toy? It sounded too small for what she felt. Days turned into weeks. Emma kept the card in her wallet as if it carried luck. She worked, saved every coin, and began dreaming again. She didn't know that Daniel was also thinking of her. He had checked on her anonymously through donations, through small gestures no one could trace back to him. One morning, Emma received a letter in the mail, addressed with no return name. Inside was a single sentence written in elegant handwriting. Don't stop. Believing that you deserve more. D. She gasped, recognizing the same initial from the toy's note. Her heart raced. It wasn't just charity. He was trying to tell her something deeper, that she was worth more than survival. Meanwhile, Daniel sat in his office, overlooking the skyline. His assistant entered, saying, "Sir, the charity gala is next week. Should we confirm your attendance?" Daniel looked out the window. "Yes," he said slowly, "and send an invitation to someone." Emma Collins. The assistant hesitated. "Who is she?" "Someone who reminds me of everything money can't buy." At that moment, Daniel didn't realize that his decision would change both of their lives forever. The silent purchase. The night of the charity gala arrived, and Emma stood in front of her small mirror, nervously adjusting the only dress she owned that could pass for formal, a simple navy blue gown she had borrowed from her neighbor. She tied her hair back neatly and applied a touch of lipstick, her hands trembling. She couldn't believe the invitation was real. She had almost thrown it away, thinking it was a mistake. But the address, the handwriting, and the embossed seal all proved otherwise. Someone, Daniel, wanted her there. When she arrived at the Grand Hotel ballroom, the world felt unreal. Crystal chandeliers sparkled above, violins played softly, and people in expensive clothes laughed over champagne. Emma stood at the entrance, feeling out of place, but holding her head high. A hostess smiled politely. "Name, please?" "Emma Collins," she said quietly. The hostess's eyes brightened. "Ah, yes. Mr. Hayes personally requested your seat." She gestured toward a table near the front. Emma's stomach fluttered. As she walked through the glittering room, she could feel eyes on her. Whispers followed, some curious, some judgmental. "Who is she?" "I've never seen her before." "Maybe one of his assistants?" Emma ignored them and found her seat. Moments later, Daniel appeared on stage to deliver a speech. Dressed in a sharp black suit, he spoke with humility and warmth, thanking everyone for supporting his foundation for single parents and children in need. "When I was a boy," he began, "my mother couldn't afford to buy me a toy I wanted. I never forgot that day, not because I didn't get the toy, but because I saw how much it hurt her say no. Years later, when I could finally afford it, I realized money doesn't heal the pain of watching someone you love struggle. Only compassion does. Emma's eyes filled with tears. His words echoed her own life. After the speech, Daniel walked among the guests, greeting donors and partners. When his eyes met Emma's across the room, everything else faded. He approached slowly, offering a calm smile. "You came," he said softly. "I wasn't sure I should," she admitted. "I'm glad you did." They talked for a while, surrounded by glittering wealth, but speaking as if the world outside didn't exist. Daniel asked about her daughter, her work, her dreams. Emma hesitated, but answered honestly. "I just want to give Lily a better life," she said. "I don't need riches. Just stability." "That's a beautiful goal," Daniel said sincerely. "But stability starts with believing you deserve more than struggle." Emma looked down, humbled. "It's hard to believe that when every day feels like a fight." He nodded. "That's why people like me must remember what it was like before we had anything, so we can help others stand taller." As they spoke, a server passed by offering champagne. Emma politely declined. Daniel smiled. "Tea, then?" She laughed softly. "You?" "Remembered. I remember everything," he said, eyes gleaming. "Especially those who remind me why I built all this." Later that night, as guests danced, Daniel disappeared quietly. Emma searched for him, but couldn't find him anywhere. When she finally decided to leave, a staff member handed her an envelope. "Mr. Hayes asked me to give you this." Inside was a letter that read, "Meet me at the old park tomorrow at noon. The next day, Emma arrived at the park with Lily. The air was crisp, the trees golden with early autumn. Daniel was already there, standing by a bench with a small box beside him. "Good morning," he greeted warmly. Lily ran toward him without fear. "You're the man from the toy store," she said excitedly. Daniel smiled. "Yes, I am. And I believe I owe you another gift." He opened the box. Inside were art supplies, sketchbooks, and paints. "For your imagination," he said, gently, "because dreams need tools." Lily's eyes sparkled. Emma was speechless. "I can't accept this," she said, her voice trembling. Daniel shook his head. "You already have. Every time you fight for her, you earn more than this. I'm just making sure you're seen." For the first time in years, Emma felt something she hadn't in a long time: dignity. Not pity, not charity, but genuine respect. As they parted, Daniel said quietly, "This isn't the last time our paths will cross." And though she didn't understand what he meant, deep inside, she believed him. The return to the store. A few weeks passed. Since the meeting in the park, life began to feel lighter for Emma and Lily. The nights were still long, the bills still heavy, but hope had settled in their small apartment like sunlight sneaking through old curtains. Every evening, Lily painted with her new art set, her laughter echoing through the rooms. Emma smiled each time she saw her daughter's joy, a reminder that kindness had changed everything. One Saturday afternoon, Emma decided to stop by the toy store again. This time not because she needed to buy something, but because she wanted to. Her shifts had increased at the diner, and for the first time in a long while, she had a little extra money left after paying rent. It wasn't much, but it was enough to let Lily pick something small. They entered the store hand in hand. The smell of plastic and perfume brought back memories of that painful day and the miracle that followed. But this time, Emma didn't feel shame. She felt strong. Lily ran straight to the shelf where the blue ribbon bunny had once been. "Mommy, he's not here anymore," she said sadly. Emma smiled gently. "That's okay, sweetheart. You already have him at home." They wandered the aisles together, looking at puzzles, paints, and picture books. The cashier, A young man new to the job greeted them warmly. "Let me know if you need anything." As they walked, Emma noticed a framed photograph near the counter. It showed Daniel shaking hands with the store owner, a caption reading, "Donor of the Year, supporting local families." Her breath caught. He had donated to the same store that once witnessed her struggle. "Mommy, look, it's Mr. D," Lily exclaimed, pointing at the picture. Emma nodded softly, emotion filling her chest. "Yes, baby, that's him." The cashier overheard and smiled. "You know Mr. Hayes?" Emma hesitated. "Not really, just a kind man who helped us once." The cashier leaned closer. "He helps a lot of people. He told the owner once that every act of generosity begins in silence. Funny thing, he never lets anyone thank him in public." Emma's heart swelled with pride and sorrow all at once. She remembered his calm voice, his gentle eyes, his quiet strength. He wasn't a hero in headlines. He was one in moments no one else saw. They chose a small art book and approached the counter. "This one, please," Emma said, handing over the cash. As the cashier packed the item, he paused. "Ma'am, your total is covered." "What?" Emma blinked. There must be a mistake. He shook his head. "No mistake. Someone prepaid for you. Said to tell you, keep painting the world brighter." Tears filled her eyes. Daniel again. Somehow, even when unseen, he was there. Later that night, Emma sat on her couch, staring at the receipt marked paid. Lily was asleep beside her, her small hands covered in paint from hours of drawing. Emma whispered, "Why me?" Her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. It read, "Because you remind me of someone who never gave up, D." Emma covered her mouth. Overwhelmed, she typed back, "Thank you. You've done too much." A moment later, his reply came, "Not enough. The world changes when people like you get the chance they deserve." The next morning, Emma walked into the diner with a new sense of purpose. She wasn't just working anymore. She was building something. She had started saving for Lily's future, opening a small account with every extra tip she earned. It wasn't much yet, but it was hers. That evening, after closing, she saw a sleek car parked outside the diner. Daniel stepped out, dressed simply as always. "Evening," he said. Emma's heart raced. "You didn't have to come here." "I wanted to," he said softly. "I like this place." They sat at a booth near the window, two worlds meeting under the hum of fluorescent light. "Why do you keep helping us?" Emma asked finally. Daniel looked thoughtful. "Because once someone helped me when I had nothing. And I promised myself I'd spend my life repaying that debt. Not to the same person, but to anyone who reminded me of her strength." Emma nodded slowly. "That's beautiful." He smiled faintly. "It's not beauty, it's balance." Before leaving, Daniel placed an envelope on the table. "For Lily," he said, "not as charity, as investment." When Emma opened it later, she found papers, a scholarship fund in Lily's name. Tears blurred her vision as she whispered, "He really is a miracle." The visit from the manager. A week later, Emma was cleaning tables at the diner when the doorbell chimed. The manager, Mr. Reed, called out from the counter, "Emma, someone's here to see you." She looked up and froze. Standing by the door was a sharply dressed man holding a briefcase. He smiled politely. "Miss Collins?" "Yes," she said cautiously, wiping her hands on her apron. "I'm Mr. Thompson. I manage one of Mr. Hayes's companies," he said, extending his hand. "May we speak privately for a moment?" The manager nodded approvingly, waving her off. "Go ahead, Emma. Take 5. They stepped outside into the cool afternoon breeze. Mr. Thompson handed her an envelope with the company logo printed in gold. Mr. Hayes asked me to deliver this personally. Emma's brow furrowed. Is he all right? He's fine, the man assured her with a warm smile. But he wanted you to have this, and to tell you he believes in your potential. She opened the envelope slowly. Inside was a letter and a business card. Letter read, You once told me you wanted stability, not riches. Stability begins with opportunity. Come work with us, D. Her heart pounded. Attached to the card was an offer, a position at one of Daniel's charity offices, helping coordinate donations and community programs. A real job, with benefits, training, and a salary that could change everything. Tears welled up in her eyes. I don't know what to say. Mr. Thompson smiled kindly. Say yes. He rarely makes personal requests. You must have made quite an impression. Emma nodded slowly, holding the paper as if it were fragile gold. Please. Tell him thank you. That night, she sat at the kitchen table reading the letter over and over. Lily was coloring beside her. Mommy, what's that? Emma smiled through tears. It's our new beginning. Lily giggled. Can I tell Mr. D? Emma laughed softly. Maybe one day, sweetheart. Her first day at the foundation office felt like stepping into another world. The building was modern and bright, with walls covered in photographs of families, children, and stories of hope. She was nervous at first, surrounded by people in suits, computers humming, phones ringing, but the moment she started, she realized something. This wasn't just work, it was purpose. Her role involved reviewing letters from struggling families and arranging donations. Every story reminded her of where she had been. Each approval she signed felt like passing on Daniel's kindness. One afternoon, as she organized files, a middle-aged woman approached her. You're Emma Collins, right? Yes, she said politely. The woman smiled warmly. I manage this branch. Mr. Hayes spoke very highly of you. Emma blinked in surprise. He did? Indeed, the woman said. He said you understand what help really means, that it's not about money, it's about dignity. He wanted someone like you here. Emma's eyes softened. That sounds like him. Over the following weeks, she grew confident in her role. She learned quickly, and her compassion drew admiration from colleagues. Letters poured in from single parents, thanking the foundation for aid. She couldn't help but see herself in every word. One evening, as the office emptied, the manager entered holding a folder. Emma, this one's for your approval. Emma opened it. A single mother requesting assistance for her child's medical treatment. Her salary was low, her rent overdue. The resemblance to her own story made her chest tighten. Without hesitation, she signed it and whispered, Approved. Later, when she stepped outside, a familiar car was parked near the curb. Daniel stood leaning against it, smiling softly. I was hoping I'd see you here, he said. Emma approached, both shy and grateful. You did all this for me. I still don't understand why. Daniel's gaze was calm. Because the world needs people who've known pain. They give help differently. You're proof of that. Emma swallowed hard. You believed in me when I couldn't believe in myself. He smiled gently. And now you'll do the same for others. They stood in silence for a moment, the city lights reflecting in their eyes. It wasn't love. Not yet. It was something deeper. Recognition. Two souls who had crossed paths at the exact moment they needed to. As Daniel drove away, Emma whispered to herself, I won't waste this gift. And she meant it. The Millionaire story. Emma had been working at the foundation for nearly 3 months when she finally learned the full story behind Daniel Hayes, the man who had silently rewritten her destiny. One morning, as she was organizing letters, in the office, the manager approached with a soft smile. Emma, Mr. Hayes will be visiting today. He's giving a talk to our new volunteers. You should stay and listen." Her heart skipped. Though she had seen him several times since that day at the diner, their meetings were brief, always professional. Still, every time she saw him, she felt something: gratitude, admiration, and perhaps something she couldn't name. At noon, Daniel arrived. The room filled with quiet respect as he walked in. Confident but humble, dressed simply in a charcoal gray suit. He greeted the staff personally before beginning. His speech: "When I started this foundation," he said, "it wasn't about charity, it was about memory. I was raised by a single mother who worked herself to exhaustion so I could go to school. We had nights with no dinner, days without heat, but she never let me feel poor in spirit. One winter, I wanted a toy, a small train, and she couldn't afford it. I remember her crying that night when she thought I was asleep. That image never left me." Emma listened, her throat tightening. He continued, "Years later, when I built my company, I told myself that money would never become my comfort. It would become my tool. Because what's the point of success if you can't ease the struggle of those still fighting?" His voice softened. "I've met people who reminded me of her strength. Single parents, dreamers, believers who wake up every day and keep going even when the world ignores them. Those people inspire everything I do." Emma knew he was speaking from his heart, but when his eyes briefly met hers in the crowd, she felt as if the words were meant for her. Tears welled in her eyes. The other employees applauded, moved by his honesty, but Emma stood frozen, overwhelmed by the realization that she wasn't just part of a story. She had become part of his reason. After the meeting, as people dispersed, Daniel approached her quietly. "You heard all that before, didn't you?" he said with a smile. Emma shook her head, laughing through tears. "Not like that. You make pain sound powerful." He shrugged gently. "Pain is what teaches us to listen." They walked outside together. The wind carried a soft chill, and leaves scattered across the steps. "Do you ever think," Emma asked, "that maybe what happened between us was fate?" Daniel paused. "I don't believe in coincidences. I believe in timing. The right people appear when we're ready to understand why." She smiled. "So you are ready to understand me?" He chuckled quietly. "No, I think you are ready to remind me who I used to be." They stood in silence for a moment. Then Daniel's driver approached with a file. "Sir, the press is waiting." At the headquarters, Daniel turned to Emma. "Come with me." "What? I can't. Just for the day," he said. "I want you to see what you helped build." Inside the car, the world outside transformed. They drove past neighborhoods where Daniel's foundation had rebuilt schools and shelters. Every one of these projects, he explained, started with a single story like yours. A letter, a face, a child who believed in something. Emma watched out the window, speechless. She realized his generosity wasn't random. It was structured, deliberate, a mission, not a hobby. When they reached the main headquarters, reporters surrounded him, cameras flashing. Daniel answered politely, but briefly, refusing questions about his personal life. As they entered the building, Emma whispered, "You really don't like attention, do you?" He smiled. "Attention feeds ego. Change feeds purpose." Later, in his office overlooking the skyline, he handed her a small notebook. "These are my mother's words," he said. "She used to write lessons for me. I've kept them all these years." Emma opened the first page. In faded ink, it read, "Give without expecting. Love without measuring. Rise without forgetting." Her eyes filled with tears. She was wise. "She was everything," Daniel said quietly. "When she passed, I promised I'd find others like her, women who kept the world turning with nothing but courage." That's why the first fund I created was for single mothers. You didn't know, but part of it was named after her. Emma touched the page gently. And now you found me. Daniel nodded. I think she would have liked you. Silence lingered, gentle, comfortable. Two lives that had been broken in different ways now fit together like pieces of a story that was always meant to be told. Before she left, Daniel said softly, There's more ahead, Emma. Don't stop here. She smiled faintly. Neither should you. As she walked out of his office that day, she finally understood. Daniel wasn't just the man who bought a toy. He was the man who rebuilt lives in silence. And somehow, he had chosen hers first. The transformation. Months passed, and Emma's life began to transform in ways she had never imagined. The once tired waitress who had counted coins at a toy store was now a confident woman working to change lives every day. But her transformation wasn't just professional. It was spiritual. She had learned to believe again. Not in luck, but in effort, kindness, and timing. At home, Lily had grown brighter, more curious, more hopeful. Her drawings now covered the apartment walls, families smiling, hearts surrounded by stars, a tall man with kind eyes, and a little girl holding his hand. Each night, Emma watched her daughter sleep and whispered silent, thanks to the universe for the stranger who had become their angel. One morning, as Emma entered the office, she found an invitation waiting on her desk. It was embossed in gold, simple yet elegant. Annual charity banquet, hosted by the Hayes Foundation. Her heart skipped. This time, she wasn't just attending. Her name was listed among the coordinators. She worked tirelessly for weeks preparing the event, organizing logistics, handling donors, managing guest lists. Everyone admired her dedication. You're the heart of this place, her manager told her one evening. Emma smiled, humbled. I'm just grateful to be part of something good. On the night of the banquet, the ballroom was filled with hundreds of guests. Emma moved gracefully among them, ensuring everything went smoothly. She wore a modest silver dress, her hair in soft curls. Gone was the timid woman who once avoided eye contact. This Emma carried quiet dignity. Halfway through the evening, Daniel took the stage. His speech was shorter this time, but just as powerful. Every year, he began, I'm reminded that wealth means nothing if it doesn't multiply hope. Tonight, I want to honor someone who embodies that, someone who turned pain into purpose. He paused, scanning the crowd. Emma froze as his gaze met hers. Please join me in thanking Emma Collins, whose courage reminds us all that kindness is the greatest investment. The room erupted in applause. Emma's hands trembled as she walked toward the stage. Daniel extended his hand. You deserve this, he said softly. You made me remember why I started. Tears streamed down her face as she whispered, You gave me more than a job, Daniel. You gave me a reason. He smiled gently. And you gave me a reminder. The applause faded as cameras flashed. For once, Daniel didn't shy away from the spotlight. This, he said, motioning to Emma, is what change looks like. Not from boardrooms or headlines, but from hearts that refuse to stop caring. After the event, as the guests left and the lights dimmed, Daniel found Emma standing by the balcony overlooking the city. You handled everything perfectly, he said. She laughed softly. I thought I'd faint halfway through your speech. He smiled. You've come far, Emma. So have you, she replied. But you were already there. You just didn't see how much your story mattered. He leaned on the railing beside her. Maybe that's what we're both learning, that giving isn't about saving people. It's about remembering we're all the same. They stood in comfortable silence, the city glowing beneath them. Then Daniel said quietly, I'm expanding the foundation. New branches, new leaders. I want you to direct. One of them, Emma gasped. Daniel, I'm not qualified. He shook his head. You're more than qualified. You know what struggle feels like. That's something you can't teach in classrooms. Tears welled up in her eyes. I don't know what to say. Say yes, he said with a small smile. Like you. Did the first time? She laughed through tears. Okay, yes. As the music played softly in the distance, Daniel handed her a small velvet box. Open it when you're ready, he said before walking away. At home that night, after putting Lily to bed, Emma opened the box. Inside was a silver bracelet, engraved with 3 simple words: believe, endure, rise. She slipped it on her wrist, whispering, Thank you, Daniel. The next morning, she looked in the mirror and saw a new woman staring back. One who no longer carried fear in her eyes, but faith in her heart. She was proof that sometimes a single act of kindness could rewrite a lifetime. And somewhere across the city, Daniel looked out from his window, smiling quietly. The transformation he had sparked had, in truth, transformed him too. The moral and the reunion. A full year had passed since the day Emma met Daniel at the toy store. The seasons had come and gone, but the memory of that rainy afternoon remained as vivid as ever. The day a small act of kindness had changed 2 lives forever. Emma now directed one of the new branches of the Hayes Foundation, located near the same community where she once struggled to survive. Her office was simple, decorated with children's drawings and quotes about hope. She often said, This isn't my job. This is my second chance. Lily had blossomed into a confident, creative little girl. Her teachers called her the girl who paints joy. Every week, she volunteered at the foundation's daycare, helping younger kids draw and read. Sometimes, when Emma watched her daughter laughing with other children, she whispered to herself, We made it. One Saturday morning, Emma received a letter in the mail. The handwriting was familiar, neat, calm, and signed only with a single letter, D. It read, Meet me. At the place where it all began. Her heart raced. She knew exactly where to go. That afternoon, she and Lily arrived at the old toy store. It looked different now. Brighter, remodeled, but the same energy lingered in the air. The owner greeted them warmly. Ah, Miss Collins. We've been expecting. You. Expecting her? Before she could ask, the door opened and Daniel walked in. He was dressed simply, as always, but his presence filled the room. Lily ran to him instantly. Mr. D. She shouted, hugging him. Mommy says you're an angel. Daniel laughed softly. I'm not an angel, little one. Just someone lucky enough to know you too. Emma stood still, smiling through tears. You never stop surprising me. He smiled back. I didn't want to end our story without one last chapter. He gestured for her to follow him toward the counter. The store owner handed her a folder. Inside was a deed. The ownership papers of the entire toy store. Emma gasped. Daniel, what is this? He spoke gently. This store changed my life once, and yours too. I thought it was time for it to belong to someone who truly understands what dreams are worth. It's yours now. Her voice trembled. I can't accept this. Yes, you can, he said softly, because this isn't charity. It's legacy. You'll turn it into something beautiful. I know you will. Lily's eyes sparkled. Mommy owns a toy store? Emma knelt, hugging her daughter tightly. Yes, baby, we do. Tears streamed down her face as she turned back to Daniel. You've given us everything. He shook his head. No, Emma, you gave me something too. You reminded me that wealth without compassion is poverty in disguise. They stood there for a long moment, the silence filled with gratitude. Finally, Daniel said, "I'm leaving the city for a while, expanding the foundation overseas. But I wanted you to know, wherever I go, I'll always be proud of what you've built." Emma's lips trembled. "You'll always have a place here." He smiled gently. "I know." Before he left, he knelt to Lily's level and handed her a small golden key. "This opens the heart of dreams," he said. "Keep it safe." Lily giggled. "I will." Daniel rose, turned to Emma, and for the first time hugged her. It was not a romantic embrace. It was something pure, something that spoke of shared pain, victory, and faith in humanity. "Thank you," Emma whispered. "For what?" "For proving that goodness still exists." He smiled faintly. "It always has. Sometimes it just hides behind fear." As Daniel walked out of the store and into the sunlight, Emma watched from the window. She knew their paths might cross again someday, but even if they didn't, his impact would echo in every life she touched. Weeks later, she reopened the store under a new name, Dream Haven, where hope begins. It wasn't just a shop. It became a community space for children and parents who needed joy, laughter, and belief again. The story spread across local news. Reporters asked Emma how it all started. She simply said, "With a toy I couldn't afford, and a stranger who taught me that wealth is not measured by money, but by how deeply you can care." That night, she stood in front of the store with Lily, looking at the glowing sign. "Do you think Mr. D will visit?" Lily asked. Emma smiled. "He already has. Every time someone walks through that door with hope, he's here." As the lights flickered and the stars appeared above, Emma realized something profound. The greatest fortune in life isn't found in what you own, but in who you become when life tests your heart. And somewhere far away, Daniel watched a video of the store's reopening on his laptop. He smiled quietly, whispered a prayer, and closed his eyes with peace. Because sometimes helping one soul is enough to heal your own.